Hi, and welcome to another episode of A.S.K on CYC. So last week we gave married women the opportunity to speak up and ask questions and tell their husbands what they want in their marriage. And this week we're giving men the equal opportunity to also call in, ask, send in questions, ask their wives, voice their opinions and tell their wives what they want in their marriage. So here on Ask, we give you a live show, and it's live for a reason, because we want you, the audience, to get involved, ask questions, and don't forget, when you ask a question, you remain anonymous on tonight's show. So please, sky's the limit. We have with us a priest on tonight's show. Ask your questions, make your statements. Men, tonight is boys' night. Speak up and tell your wives what you want. And just in case there are any children around, please refrain them from continuing watching this show, as there might be questions that are inappropriate for young children. The phone number for tonight's show is 0416 551 292. This is your opportunity to ask questions. It's a live show. You get your questions answered live tonight. So let me introduce you to the guest on tonight's show. We have with us Father Cyril. Welcome, Father.
Hi, Mina. How are you?
2 weeks in a row. It's a big blessing.
Yeah, I know. It's hopefully it'll be beneficial for all of us by the grace of God.
So tonight we're giving men the opportunity to ask questions and speak up.
That's fantastic, because I've noticed I think some men were trying to send questions through last week. So hopefully this will be a good opportunity to cover some of those.
Sure. But before we start tonight's show, I just wanted to wish you a happy birthday for yesterday.
Thank you very much, Mina. Thank you so much. Thank you. I really appreciate it. I'm surprised you remembered. Thank you.
Yeah.
It's very thoughtful.
I wanted to wait till the show started, so to give you a live happy birthday.
Yeah, by the way, he didn't give me any heads up. So.
All right, let's do it. Let's get into it.
Absolutely.
So I got one question remaining from last week. It was from a man that sent in the question. And like I promised, I said that I'll ask it this week.
Yes.
So it was actually two questions. So the first question, my wife likes to serve at church on Sundays most of the day, which I don't mind. However, it takes up all our Sundays and it affects our family time. What should I do?
Very good question, because sometimes, especially in the Coptic Church, service forms part of our identity. When the first thing that when you ask someone, who are you? They tell you their name, what they do for a living, and then probably a couple of points after that, they tell you, whether they serve or what service they do at a particular church. So we grow up in an environment that encourages and flourishes on service, and so it becomes part of us, and therefore it's very hard if someone is that involved in service to sort of ask them to pull away or stop. But the most important thing that we need to remember is that service starts at home. That's what they told me when I first became a priest. That's what they told me when I started serving in Sunday school and pre-servants. Any service, they tell you the best advice they give you is that service starts always at home. What does that mean? Is that my number one priority is to serve at home. Because when you serve at home and your home is built on service and is nourished, then that nourishment overflows onto you and it allows you to go and serve. So for example, me as a priest, if I abandon my family and I abandon my wife and my children, then they become dry, they become disgruntled. Every time I want to leave the house, or I want to go to a service, they may not appreciate it, or they may not see the benefit of it. But if I serve at home first, then my household is nourished by the word of God. And then the grace of God becomes sufficient for them, and then they understand. So when I do that, I am prioritizing and I'm starting service first at home. So I have an obligation that tells me that I have an obligation towards my home. So my home has a priority. But in saying that, everything is in moderation. Everything is a balance. So maybe if I know, for example, that Sunday is the family day, then maybe I'll just pick up another service when it's a little bit more suitable for my family to do. Or if I'm, and by all means, that sometimes can cause problems as well in a relationship. If I'm serving 7 days a week, I am actually, again, I have a responsibility and an obligation towards my family. So if I'm serving 7 days a week, maybe discuss it with your confession father, and maybe that can be reduced a little bit so you can spend some time with your family and make sure that your family is served just like those who are at church.
Okay. So the next question that came in from last week's show was, my wife isn't very emotional. How can I show her that I appreciate her when she doesn't care much for it?
So we touched on this a little bit last week, and we spoke about the different languages of love and how different people receive love and how different people communicate love. So it's very important that we have that understanding. Why? Because if my wife is not someone who is emotional, who really may be saying to her, I love you every once in a while, or sending her a message throughout the week, or leaving her posted stickers on the fridge or on her mirror, that doesn't work with her, then maybe an act of service, maybe helping her around the house, doing a load of washing every once in a while, or helping her in the kitchen, or cooking, or helping her as soon as I come home, give her a break and take care of the kids and give her a break to put her feet up and, I don't know, read a book or something. That may speak 1,000 words than simply saying I love you to that particular person. To another wife, absolutely, I love you will be more than sufficient, 10 times better than you cooking all week long, for example. So it's very important that I know, and I think this particular person has done well because he has identified what works and what doesn't work for his wife. So that's the first step. Next step is that, okay, I know one doesn't work, I have to try the other four. Like, for example, quality time, where I focus on her and spend some time with her and give her my undivided attention. Maybe that would work as well.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah.
We actually got a question that just arrived from an audience member. They're asking, how do I give my partner the emotional attention she needs without feeling drained or apathetic with her constant emotion? You want me to repeat the question?
Yeah, can you please?
How do I give my partner the emotional attention she needs without feeling drained or apathetic with her constant emotion?
Look, last week when I was talking to the women, I said to them, men are like rubber bands. So they have to disconnect for them to come back and connect. Women are, when psychologists speak about women, they say sometimes they're almost like, they describe women as almost like a wave. So sometimes they go through these highs and lows emotionally. So I need to be able to read and validate my wife's emotions. So sometimes she might be in need because she's feeling down or she's stressed, and that's affecting her mood. So I need to know, okay, I need to be a little bit more supportive. At times when things are going well and I need to sort of not take a break, but I need to sort of reserve, because if I feel like I'm giving all the time, I feel drained. But something else fills you as well, because when you give, you will also receive. So your wife in return will also be, as you give her this emotional support, you won't be drained, because she'll also be reciprocating and giving you emotional support as well that fills you up. Something very important as well that the fathers say. They say, for example, in 1 Corinthians chapter 13, where it talks about love. And it says love bears all things. It talks about love is not selfish, is selfless, and love bears all things. So when we talk about love, the beneficiary of love is not me, but the one opposite to me. So when I love my wife is the beneficiary of that love, because it's a very selfless love. So you get this sense from St. Paul, is that he just wants you to give all day long. So then you ask yourself, what do I get out of it, or what fills me up? Something very important that the fathers say when they contemplated on this. They said, when you do that sacrificial act, God starts to pour and fill, and he fills you with this unconditional and abundance of love that allows you to overflow and spills over to your partner. But also because, as we said last week, you have become one as a result of the holy matrimony. So therefore, I am responsible for her and she's responsible for me. So when I give, she returns as well, and I get filled by the love of God and also by the love that she gives back to me.
Okay, all right. So next question is, my wife is not encouraged to learn to cook. We are always eating takeaway. How do I encourage her?
Speaking of cooking, I'll tell you this story. Once I came across this man and this topic came up, and I was speaking to this man who's been married for like 20, 30 years. And he was telling me about how incredible his wife is when it comes to cooking. And I said to him, so has she always been like this? Has she always been good at cooking? And he goes to me, Abuna, let me tell you a story. His mum used to make the best wara anab, vine leaves. So as soon as they got married, he said to her, listen, as soon as they came back from the honeymoon, he said to her, honey, can you please make me wara anab? Because I'm craving it. My mum used to make it for me all the time. So at the time, it was something wara anab is very, very difficult, as you know, to make. So she thought to sort of bypass the rolling phase. So she thought she'll make it like a saniya. She'll make it like a saniya and put it in the oven. So basically, she layered it like baklava, for example. So she put the wara anab on the bottom, and then she put the minced meat in the middle, and then she put some more wara anab on top and stuck it in the oven. So it came out very dry, and it didn't taste obviously like normal wara anab does. But what was important is that the reason I brought this story is that he was always encouraging. He obviously expressed his opinion, and he was honest, and he said to her, listen, this tastes terrible. But he always encouraged her and said to her, okay, she knew that it's his favorite dish. So she made an effort to learn how to make it, and he, by the same token, encouraged her. It's important as well, Mina, that we mix it up a little bit. I think it's very important that we break away from this stereotype. Who said that women are the only ones that should be cooking or the only ones that should be in the kitchen? So, for example, if I'm terrible at cooking and I get married and my wife is terrible at cooking as well, now there's these beautiful courses that people carry out, like cooking classes. Why don't I make a date out of it? Take my wife, enroll into a cooking class, cook together in the kitchen, learn some things, and just make a date out of it. Make it fun, make it enjoyable. Also, take baby steps. We don't have to have ملوخية بالأرانب. We can just start slow. Like a stir fry or just a half cooked lasagna from Woolies that I can just stick in the oven, and with a salad on the side. And then at least I've actually participated in the cooking process. So it's nice when you do it together because you encourage each other. So why not enroll in a couple of cooking classes together, and that way you encourage her, and also positive feedback to encourage her throughout the process. But let's mix it up a little bit. Not just the woman stuck in the kitchen all day and the man sitting in front of the couch, or he's looking after the kids. Rotate. Be just some common sense. Share everything, and do everything together. It becomes incredible, because then you realize out of that process something really interesting happens. Is that you realize that you are really good at something. And then you realize that your wife is really good at something else. And then you know your strength and your weaknesses. Like, for example, me personally, I love cooking Indian food. So I am brilliant. I think I cook the world's best butter chicken. That's what my wife tells me anyway. My wife is just brilliant at everything. So I know, so whenever we're craving Indian, I know, okay, it's my turn to cook, for example. I know when I want a macaroni bil bechamel, or I want, something else, it's her turn to go into the kitchen. And it's a nice balance.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Just a reminder to our audience members, please, this is a live show. We're giving you the opportunity to ask questions. You can remain anonymous. The phone number is 0416 551 292. Boys, this is your night. Ask your questions. We got a question that just came in from an audience member. They're asking, is it wrong to want time away from my partner, e.g. a few hours in the day? Is this a sign of unreadiness for a relationship, or is it normal for men?
Absolutely normal. And I think I touched on that a little bit last week, and I touched on it a little bit earlier today about the rubber band concept. And that's something that's been proven by psychologists who've done multiple studies about brain function of a man and how he responds to things and blood flow to the brain and decision making and all of those things. And I was actually speaking to some women after the show, and they said to me, we think deep down we're like men as well psychologically, because we like to disengage. So especially men, it's a known fact that they at some point in time, they need to disengage, to pull away like a rubber band for them to come back again and engage. Think of it as a recharge session. That can come in different ways. It can be simply sitting on a couch watching TV. It can be, playing his PlayStation. He comes back from work, sits on and switches on the PlayStation, has half an hour of gaming, or Xbox or whatever it is, half an hour of gaming, and that's his recharge. I must be able to understand that's just normal, and therefore I need to facilitate it. So when I see my husband or my wife having her chill out time, I need to respect that and give her space. And if she is so busy, one of the most beautiful things that you can do is actually facilitate that time. So you're married, you have family, you have children, you know that she's been looking after children all day. If you come home and take those children and look after the kids for a little bit and give her 5, 10, 15, 20 minutes, half an hour, whatever it is, to recharge her batteries and just have a break. Because believe it or not, sometimes women don't even have time to have a shower during the day because the kids are either one is sleeping and the other is awake. So a simple thing like a shower, she doesn't even have time to shower. So for you to come home and take the kids and take the responsibilities off her hands so she can have that time away, and vice versa as well, or to when you come back from work and your wife gives you that space to just sit on the couch and do absolutely nothing, think of it as recharge to come back and connect. So I don't think it's something that we should feel bad about. I don't think it's a reflection of how I feel about my partner, but I need to recognize and accept that it's just part of my mental makeup, that I just need to take a break and recharge, especially after a long day.
Sure. Okay. So next question is, my wife likes to spoil herself regularly. Every time I suggest we put that money to something more beneficial, she responds, it's my money, I worked hard for it.
Look, we have to be sensible. We have to have balance. I keep saying everything in moderation. We've all heard of retail therapy. It's important. It's really important, and I need to recognize that. But we need to also strike up a balance. So I need to know what's excessive and what's not excessive, firstly. Secondly, I need one thing that I've learned in marriage is that it's not what you say, but it's how you say it. That is absolutely crucial for you to have any sort of a successful conversation or a discussion. So if you just come out and say to your wife, look, I think you spend way too much, you're blowing all the money away, you're wasting the money, then that can come across as very derogatory, can be very aggressive, and she immediately will go on the defensive. So it's very important, Mina, is I choose how I say things. So I might say to her, look, at the moment we don't have anything to save for. So therefore she may not see the need to put the money away because she wants to enjoy her money because she worked hard for it. Fair enough. But maybe I should say to her, look, honey, maybe we need to start saving for ABC, or maybe we need to start saving for a holiday. Give her a goal, give her something to aim for. Because if she doesn't have that, then she may not see the point of saving. Why don't I just enjoy my money? Secondly, it's healthy for her to do that, but also not excessively. For example, I can go and spend hundreds or even thousands on a Louis Vuitton or a Gucci item. I may convince myself that I'm spending that much money because I want the quality, not the brand name. But I can also spend maybe not go and get something from cheap and nasty, but I can also spend just a little bit more, find the medium range, still get an item of good quality, but the rest of the money that I didn't blow on this expensive item is that I can put that towards something else. So give her a goal to aim for. Tell her, look, maybe we should start saving for a holiday. Maybe we should start saving to buy a house. Maybe we should start saving because soon we're going to have children and we need to put the kids through school. So give her something to work towards, but also encourage by example. And I touched on that last week as well. That's very, very important because actions speak louder than words. If she sees me saving, she'll be encouraged to start saving. But if she sees me, I'm blowing my money as well away, then she'll say, why should I save when you're spending all of your money? So I need to be Christ-like. Christ, whenever he wanted to get a message across to his disciples, he would lead by example, he would do it. Even if it meant he had to wash their feet. And back then they wore sandals and their feet, and they're walking around unpaved grounds, very dirty, very dusty, very uneven, muddy roads. But when he told them when he wanted to teach them a lesson about service, about humility, he didn't say to them, listen, I think you should, when I go, I think you should wash the feet of your future disciples. But he got down on his feet and washed it. The church passes that on to us beautifully, which is coming up in the next few holidays, is that the high priest, the highest ranking priest, on that day is the one that gets on the ground and washes the feet of everybody and his brothers, the priest, but also washes the feet of everybody else. Extremely humbling. Like I remember when I spent my 40 days at St. Anthony's Monastery in the Red Sea, Ambayostos, who is so much respect in the Holy Synod, and everywhere he goes, you should see this the presence that this man has. Then we're sitting there, and then he's, we started praying, and then he's on the floor, sitting on the floor, piled up on the floor, and we walk up to him. I was a priest for 20 days. I'm a nobody. And then I walk up to him and I roll up my galabiya and he's sitting there washing my feet. So, and Christ wanted to give us that lesson because we must lead by example, not just demand things of others, and especially the ones that are closest to us.
Sure. Okay. Next question is, how do I stop her from nagging?
Can I be extremely honest with you? I really dislike the word nagging. I don't know, there's just this bad taste to it. Look, nagging comes in stages. So nagging is actually 3 different stages. The first step is a respectful request or a comment in a very delicate voice and very respectful that a wife or a husband may say to their partner. When no response has occurred, or I haven't received any response, whether it was physically or verbally or an action that was asked of me to do, and I don't do it, obviously the wife starts to get frustrated because she has not seen an outcome to her request. So what the natural thing to do is to take it up a notch, which is level 2. Level 2 is where there's an increase in volume, but still respectful to a certain extent. Then I brush her off. I pay no attention, or I just promise her, yeah, I'll do it later. Just leave me alone now, just to get her off my back, and then I don't do anything about it. So she feels very disrespected, and she feels very insignificant. The next stage is where it gets really ugly, because then respect goes out of the way, anger kicks in because I've just been, thrown fil ard, marmatta fil ard, like I've just been absolutely disregarded, disrespected, and therefore respect goes out the window, anger kicks in, disrespect kicks in, and then we get to the final stage, which is very, very ugly, and then it becomes an argument and it gets out of hand. So the solution is for me to listen attentively to my wife. When she's speaking to me at the first stage and she's talking to me in a respectful manner and she's asking me nicely, I need to respond there. I don't need to let it escalate. So a lot of the time we think we're actually listening, but we're not listening. So, but if I actually sort of nip it before it gets to the late stages, and I deal with it at the first stage where she came up to me and she asked me nicely and respectfully, can you please hang up this photo on the wall, or can you please just make sure you take the dog for a walk, or whatever it is. If I deal with it then, I won't let it become, because no wife just comes out of nowhere and starts yelling if it's the first time it's been mentioned. There's no way in the world, it makes no sense. But in saying that as well, the wife has an obligation. Why? Because I need to choose my timing with men. Because men are problem solvers. Men are very specific. They do one thing only at a time, but they do it really, really well. So therefore, if he's doing something else, I I just need to choose my timing of when to talk to him. So for example, if he's in that zone where he's sort of pulled away and he's sitting on the couch and just watching TV and he's trying to chill so he can recharge, that may be a bad time for me to come and ask something of him because I don't have his undivided attention. So choose your timing of when to request things of your husband. And that way you have his undivided attention, he's listening to you, he responds, and then we stop it from getting to the nagging and the angry stage.
Sure. Okay, we've got a couple of questions that came in from audience members.
Sure.
And after this, we can go for a quick break.
Excellent.
So first question that came in is, my partner tends to close up at times, especially when we are frustrated with each other. It makes me impatient and less inclined to find a solution. What do I do?
I think the first tip I was given when I was getting married, and most people know this, is that don't ever go to sleep angry with your partner. So don't sleep and you're still mad at her or you're mad at him. But sometimes we need to be smart and we need to give, depending on the personality of the person. Some people are very hot-headed. Some people get angry really, really quickly. So I need to sort of, if I speak to them at that stage, it gets me nowhere. So I need to wait for them to calm down, for sort of the storm to pass, and then come back and discuss. Very important that we need to understand, Mina, is that marriage is like a rope, right? So if I'm constantly pulling and she's pulling in an argument in marriage, and if we're both constantly pulling, what's going to happen is that the rope will snap, and then therefore the discussion is lost. But when she pulls, I give, and vice versa, when I pull, she gives, when she pulls, I give, then the discussion is not, or the relationship between us is not broken. Something also very, very important is that I need to understand that whatever the reason is that's driving this is because it's something important for that person. So I need to recognize the underlying factor or the underlying cause of this argument or this discussion, because I need to sort of recognize why that person is getting fired up and getting not angry, but losing their cool. So I need to sort of pull away for a little bit, allow them to take a break, and then come back and discuss. But don't let it for too long. For example, that's why I said don't ever go to sleep while your partner is still mad at you. Because one thing that I heard beautiful I read it somewhere, and they said that when you start a beautiful day, don't let anything from yesterday contaminate it. So if you go to bed and you're mad at each other, then you carry that contamination with you the next day, and you have ruined the beautiful day that God has blessed us with.
Yeah.
But if you sort of deal with it on that day, then you have a fresh start. Every day that you wake up together is a fresh start, and it's not contaminated by whatever terrible discussion or anything that happened the day before.
How about if she's so mad at you that she's resisting?
Look, resistance is by definition is usually to a force that's pushing. So there's this force that's pushing and I'm resisting it. If I take away the force, then there's no longer resistance. So if I'm constantly screaming at her, or she's screaming at me, and I'm constantly screaming at her, we're not going to get anywhere. So there will only be resistance if there's still push. But once I take away that push, that resistance stop. Something very important as well, we need to establish the etiquette of discussions. My wife needs to know, and my husband needs to know, vice versa, that I will not be verbally abused. That's just no. You start raising your voice at me or you start yelling at me, thank you very much, but I no longer wish to be a participant in this discussion. I don't care what you're saying, I don't care if it's right or wrong, I don't care anything. But when you start yelling and screaming at me and raising your voice, thank you very much, but I will not talk to you. And I'll walk away. because there needs to be respect. That is very, very important. Because if I'm just screaming at that person, it's not right. And that's something that needs to be established straight from the get-go, even during the engagement period as well, because I know how you are. As soon as I start to scream at you, thank you very much, but I'm not interested. When you have calmed down, we'll pick this up again. Because it's not healthy. Because you can't make a decision when you're angry. You can't discuss something positively and come out with a positive outcome when you're angry, because anger clouds your mind, it clouds your judgment. So nothing positive can come from this discussion, nothing fruitful. So if you're just screaming at each other for the sake of screaming at each other, then that's all you're going to get. But if you actually want a solution, it's not going to happen while the two of you are angry. So nothing positive can come from this, and I need to always keep that in the back of my mind.
Okay. So the second question that came in from the audience, they're asking, what is your opinion on the man cave? This is an interesting question. I want to get a man cave with a TV, pool table, coffee machine, microwave, and a massage chair. Is this wrong?
And here I thought man cave, with a mangalia, with like a desk so I can read the Desert Fathers or read something, so I can go into my little cell, as they say in monasticism, go into your cell and cry over your sins. But look, I guess there's absolutely not a problem with it. I mean, again, communication is key. Obviously, as long as the space is provided and there's room in the house and my wife is happy with it, but as long as the man cave doesn't blow out of proportion, it doesn't become an anti-social event where this man cave is basically the garage and all the boys come over and it's a boys' night. And look, boys' night are fine, but as long as it's not every single week and it starts to take me away from the quality of time with my wife and my family. But there's nothing wrong with having a particular room. I mean, even if you look at a monastic structure, the cell of a monk is broken into two parts. You have the mahbasa, which is nobody ever enters, where they lock themselves away, where is all the tear and the fighting and the diabolic wars and the mataniyat, and that's where they struggle with God in prayer. Nobody ever enters amongst mahbasa. Right? It's called mahbasa because it's like mahbusa, it's locked.
Yeah.
And that's a very narrow door that leads you to it. The outside area of the cell, within the cell walls, is like a lounge room where you visit people who want to come and say hello to you or anything like that. So a man cave is healthy, but what we do in the man cave is what determines the man cave. So I'm not saying to live a monastic life, but I'm saying, of course, it's important for us to spend that time. But just like I enjoy that time with my friends, or I enjoy that time with myself, and I play pool and get a massage chair and all those things, I also need to, again, balance. And I need to balance things with my time, with my wife and my children as well. But nothing wrong with it as long as it's a healthy balance.
Okay, we're going to go for a quick break, and when we come back, we'll continue our discussion.
Excellent.
Thank
you very much.
Thank you to our audience members who've tuned in and asked questions. Please, this is your opportunity. You can still ask questions on the next half of the show. Phone number is 0416 551 292. Tonight is boys' night. Married men, please send us your questions, your requests, and make sure your wives watch this episode so they have an idea on what you want. Thank you.
CYC, Christian Youth Channel.
Hi, and welcome back to Ask on CYC. Tonight's topic is married men. Speak up. What do you want from your wives? Please, it's boys' night. Married men, tune in. Ask your questions. It's a live show because we're giving you the opportunity to ask questions. The phone number is 0416 551 292. We have with us Father Cyril, and we'll be continuing tonight's show's discussion on what do men want. So, Father, let's get back straight into it.
Absolutely.
Because the next few questions, they're really out there, and we want your opinion on these questions. And please, I encourage audience members to tune in and ask their own questions. So, next question: I have physical needs that are not being met as regular as I need them.
So, the most significant, or the highest level of connecting between a husband and wife is the physical connection. So it's an imperative, important part of marriage. I need to understand though, and this goes for men and women, I need to understand that my wife is not a robot that I can just flick a switch on. So what do I mean by that? I touched on this last week as well. It's very important, especially from a man's perspective to a woman, is that I connect with her intellectually, emotionally, and spiritually before I connect with her physically. So, for example, just exactly as if we to be 100% honest, just exactly as men have needs, so do women. So it's a mutually beneficial relationship. So therefore, her abstaining or saying no, that's just a symptom. So I need to identify what's causing the symptom. So there must be a reason. Now, I'll give you a couple of reasons. One of the reasons is that the timing is bad. For example, my wife is really, really tired. It's been a really, really long day, and I demand of her physical relationship at that point in time. Of course, the likely answer that you're going to get is no, right? I can alleviate that, for example, by helping her, releasing the stress that she's under, free up her time, give her some time to rest, and then she might be in the mood. Second possible reason is that maybe my wife is still angry with me over something, or maybe it's something that I have not connected with her emotionally, but I want to connect with her physically. Maybe there was something that she's trying to talk to me about a couple of days before it, and I wasn't really listening, and I wasn't giving her any attention. I didn't give her a sense of importance, or I didn't validate her feelings. That, you have to understand that women have an incredibly good memory. So these things, it may have passed your mind and you're not thinking about it, and you think that the discussion is over. But according to her, she didn't get her intellectual or emotional needs met because you didn't satisfy the discussion, or you didn't come to a resolution, and you just sort of brushed her off. She still remembers that. So for you to expect that she's going to connect with you physically before you have connected with her emotionally and made her happy and comfortable and validate her feelings, then you've got another thing coming. The third reason is that women need to have freedom to choose the time and the how of a physical relationship. If I force a physical relationship onto them, I strip them away from that freedom. So the automatic or psychological response is that they put a wall up and they say no. Why? Because as soon as they say no or they abstain, they have regained that freedom, because now they've become the shot callers. They're the ones that dictate when it happens and when it doesn't happen. But if I allow my wife to have freedom to choose when and how, and give her that freedom back, that would allow her to open up and not put up that psychological wall to gain back her freedom, because I've already given her freedom. So it's very important. So I need to understand her reasoning. I can't just look at, okay, my physical needs are not being met. Why are they not being met? There must be an underlying reason. So rather than dealing with the symptoms, I need to deal with the cause. Now, secondly, I touched this on it also last week as well. We need to understand that when we read last week from 1 Corinthians chapter 7, we talked about how the emotional responsibility, or the body of the woman. I'll read it for you. 1 Corinthians chapter 13 says, "Let each man have his own wife, and let each woman have her own husband." Right? And then it goes on. It says, "The wife does not have authority over her own body, but the husband does. And likewise, the husband does not have authority over his own body, but the wife does." So again, the point is that a physical relationship is not to satisfy my needs, but my number one priority is to satisfy her needs. And when the wife understands that, and the man understands that, and they understand that it's a selfless relationship where I'm trying to satisfy him and he's trying to satisfy me, what you'll notice is that you'll both be satisfied, because I'm doing my utmost to satisfy her, because I know she's doing her utmost to satisfy me. So there's this level of trust that we both want the same thing out of this relationship. So to answer the question, find the cause. She might be tired, she might be still angry or emotionally unsatisfied, or you may have stripped her away from her freedom to choose the when and the how by you pressuring her and pushing her to do something at a particular time when she doesn't want to. And therefore, to regain that freedom, she will say no, just so she can have control back of the situation.
And it also could be for a physical reason why she cannot.
Obviously, yes.
Sure.
Yes, yep.
It's a great way how you put it. It's just the eye opener, and
it's important, Mina. It's the little things. I know people think I'm trying to be funny by saying robot and flick, but honestly, sometimes we think it is. Sometimes I think I can just go up to her or to him and you know, everything will happen. But there's so much work that needs to be done before that, because not only it's the last stage, but it's the most important and the most intimate. So I can't just jump into it. That's why we kept it for marriage only, because I have connected, khalas, I've connected with you intellectually, emotionally, spiritually. We both have started to grow closer to God, and we have an awesome relationship from all perspectives. Now we're ready. So there's so much work that leads up to it, and sometimes we just want to sort of skip that and go straight to dessert.
Yeah, I love how you put it, and I'm definitely taking mental notes as you speak.
Look, I just, it's just, you know, we teach ourselves, Mina, about, like, and I sort of, again, this is such an important thing to me, is that we teach ourselves and we train ourselves and we educate ourselves about everything under the sun, except marriage and relationships and how to bring up children and how to have a successful Christian family and a framework where raising up children, as it says in the Psalm, they're a heritage of God. They're a gift from God. So therefore, my role in bringing up children is the art of making saints. My job is to make those kids, one day their names, God willing, after long life, they're in the Synaxarium. And then my role is that me and my wife also go to heaven. And then we live happily ever after, eternally, as a family unit, eternally with God in the paradise of joy and heaven afterwards. So I must understand the purpose of a Christian marriage. And I need to educate myself about how to communicate to a woman, how to communicate with her, how can I have a successful discussion without turning into an argument. So I need to read books, I need to understand things, I need to go to seminars. I know that my cousin was telling me after I did the first show, and he was telling me about and I think you mentioned it to me as well, Mina, about a workshop or a seminar that was run, I think, by St. George Church for men. And a lot of these things were discussed. I think that's crucial, that hopefully one day, God willing, will be run in all churches to educate men about women and to educate women about men and how to have a successful, healthy Christian marriage.
Yeah.
Abuna Daoud Lame has an incredible book. It's called The ABC of Christian Marriage. And it talks about every aspect: respect, responsibility, being attentive to your wife, gifts. He talks about responsibility. He talks about, and then he also has the ABC of raising children. Incredible stuff, because we take it for granted, and it's the most dangerous thing in the world, because, you know, mistakes can mean the difference between a successful marriage and a successful home and a blessed home, or a home that's broken and in decimate.
Sure. Okay, we just got a question that came in from an audience member. It's actually related to this intimacy topic. They're asking, sometimes I feel that our sexual lives is a bit dull. I try to reignite the spark with my wife. However, she feels that anything other than traditional sexual intercourse is wrong from a Christian point of view. Is this wrong? Are there restrictions on what is accepted, for example, oral sex?
Look, I think it's a very sensitive question. But at the end of the day, common sense must prevail. I can't force something onto her that she's not comfortable with. That's what it comes down to at the end of the day. So if it's something that she's comfortable with, again, dialogue and communication. If something that she's not comfortable with, then it's not something that I'm going to force onto her.
Sure.
From a Christian perspective, I don't know the answer to that. And I'm just being honest. I don't know whether I can sit there and tell you, no, for example, certain things are allowed or certain things are not allowed. But we need to understand the reason for the physical intimacy between a man and a woman.
Yes.
So that is important because the purpose dictates the act. So this is sort of something we touched on earlier on as well in the last episode as well, is that sometimes outside factors influence my expectations of what I expect of my wife or my husband. So I need to know the purpose. The purpose is that I share a very pure and intimate connection with my wife that is physical, where we actually physically connect and we become one. That is the purpose. Anything outside of that, you have to ask yourself, what is the purpose? And are these needs pure, or are they something that's I have come to want because it's something that was sort of influenced upon me from external sources?
Sure, yeah, definitely. Okay. Something maybe that this person should sit with the confession father.
I think so. I think so.
Come to an agreement.
I think that's important. But before that as well, they need to talk to each other. They need to communicate. And these things are not done, right there and then in the bedroom. It's something that needs to be discussed for earlier. And there are so many different ways. The first part of the question is interesting because things have become a little bit dull. I need to add a little bit more passion in the bedroom. There's different ways of doing that without doing things that your wife is uncomfortable with.
Yeah.
Like, for example, change of location, for example. So if you've been married for so many years and it's been years since you've taken a holiday and the bedroom has become boring, for example, why not just go for a weekend away? Just a getaway, just a romantic weekend away where you know that she walks into the bedroom, into a hotel room, and the bed is covered in rose petals. There is, nice romantic dinner afterwards, nice walk on the beach. Other pure, healthy things to mix it up and to get your husband or your wife in the mood to make something, to put that passion into the relationship. But doing those things, even if you do it after a while, that will still become boring. And then you'll think to yourself, how can I do it? And then you want to take it up another level. And then soon after that, that's not going to be satisfying and add another level. But because, again, I have not connected enough, I haven't done the groundwork before it, that the physical act becomes just a selfish satisfaction of a desire or a thought or an idea that I've seen somewhere before or I've heard of before that I just want to experiment with or want to try. And if my wife is not comfortable with it, I get frustrated. But that's not the purpose. The purpose is that after I've connected, it's supposed to be intimate and we become physically one, and something that is incredibly romantic, incredibly intimate, incredibly pure, incredibly holy. And also out of that, by the grace of God, something fruitful will come out, something blessed, a gift from God, and children will come from that relationship.
Okay, sure.
So there's other ways of adding that passion to it without doing something not extreme, but doing something that she is not comfortable with or he's not comfortable with.
So I think if the end goal is met, then it doesn't really matter what position or where or how to spark or ignite.
Yes.
It doesn't make a difference anymore because the goal and the end point is reached. I don't think making changes.
By end point, you mean like the intimacy and the connection.
Absolutely. The connection, yeah. It doesn't matter whether it's traditional or non-traditional. I think the focus should be the end point.
But to get to that end point, it must be enjoyable, of course, right? Because we're all human beings and we all have a need, and we need pleasure, right? But how we go about that, obtaining that pleasure, is important. and how we go about having that intimacy and adding that passion is important. So we can do it via things that are mutually acceptable to both of us and will make us happy. Or I may do it, look, and the problem is that if you keep pushing, for example, she may do it just to please you, but she will be so tense and the whole experience will absolutely be not enjoyable for her. And then you'll be satisfied, but she won't be. And then it becomes a very selfish act, and then you have received the pleasure that you wanted, but because she's so tense and she's not comfortable about doing it, then she gets nothing out of it, and then the intimacy and the enjoyment and the passion has actually almost been stripped away or become one-sided. And therefore, it's not a mutually pleasant experience for both of us.
Okay, we can definitely do a whole show just on intimacy in a marriage.
Absolutely, but I think you probably need someone who's more of an expert than I am.
This is something maybe we should look into making a show out of.
What is right in the eye of the church in terms of a physical relationship and what is not.
Sure.
And I said I don't know because I don't know what the biblical view is or what the church it is about the different things that the different acts.
Sure.
In the bedroom are, and therefore I'm not comfortable giving an answer about something that I don't know.
Definitely,
But at the end of the day, I'm just thinking about it from an emotional perspective, from a connecting perspective, from an intimate and a very sacred and a very special connection that a husband and a wife share. So if both of them are not enjoying it, then you have to ask yourself, what is the point?
Sure. Okay. Let's move on to the next question.
Yes.
Next question is actually an interesting question. We have regular fights as she thinks I'm checking out other women. I don't mean anything by it. When my eyes accidentally comes across another woman, I don't stop to stare. I, in fact, look away.
So you're doing the right thing. So you're not going for that second look and you're not staring. So you're obviously, clearly you're doing the right thing. So the problem is obviously from her end, right? But again, her showing you that feeling or being frustrated with that is the symptom, is not the cause. In my opinion, there could be two things causing it. An underlying mistrust, so she doesn't trust you overall, and therefore that's just not an excuse, but that's just something small that she doesn't trust you with. Or the other reason is that she could be not confident or comfortable in her own skin. So she could be going through a stage in her life where she's not happy with the way she looks or the way she feels. So maybe, for example, for example, she's recently given birth to a baby, and she doesn't feel as beautiful as she was before the pregnancy. Right? So her self-confidence and how she feels about herself is really, really low. So she thinks every other woman, 99% of the other women around her in the world or in the surrounding area look more beautiful than her. So she's automatically assuming that you look at them because she feels like they're more attractive than her. So you need to deal with the underlying reason. So you need to deal with, for example, if she doesn't trust you overall, then you need to sort of regain that trust again and make her trust you, so she knows that even if you are... Look, I've seen relationships where the man is just really, really friendly and really, really talkative. So for example, the two of them will go together and do some grocery shopping. They come to the checkout register, and then the girl that's standing at the register, and he's a little bit friendly, and he says, "Hi, how are you? How's your day going? I hope your shift hasn't been too long." And he carries out a little bit of conversation. The wife immediately thinks is that he's flirting with the girl at the register, where in fact he's just being friendly and being polite, and that's just who he is. He's just being friendly. But because there's an underlying level of mistrust, any indication of going over and above the norm may indicate that you're not doing something right. So I need to regain the trust or re-earn the trust that my wife has for me. Because once she regains that trust, she doesn't care. How do I do that? One of the ways you can do it is transparency. Be transparent with your wife. You know, be open about, for example, where you're going, where you're coming from. If you stay out late, call her and tell her, look, I'm going to be late. Just being open with her and not being someone who's very closed. Share all share everything with her and be transparent. So she knows that she reads you like an open book. She doesn't feel like you're hiding anything from her. The other problem is that she may not be feeling very confident about her appearance or her look or how she feels. You need to recharge up how she feels about herself. You need to reinforce about how beautiful she is, and she's the same beautiful woman that you fell in love with when the first time you met her, and tell her you're beautiful. Not validate, but if she's feeling low, pick her up emotionally. Tell her how beautiful she looks. Send her flirtatious messages throughout the day. Tell her how much you love her. Tell her how beautiful her hair looks today. We sometimes, as men, we make such a silly mistake, and we think that they know. They know I think she's beautiful. She knows that I love her cooking. She knows that I think the world of her. She knows that her hair looks amazing today. No. If you're leaving church on Sunday morning and she spent the whole morning, she woke up especially an hour later to do her hair with a GHD, I need to recognize that and say, look, your hair looks straight and beautiful or curly. You know, if she spent the whole night painting her nails, you got to tell her, look, the gel on your nails look much better than just normal paint. I need to take time and notice these things and validate them, because she will hear it from outside, but believe me, it means 10,000 times more coming from you than from anybody outside. So make her restore how she feels about herself, restore her self-confidence, make her feel like she's beautiful, right? And then therefore, she's like, I'm all right. He doesn't need to be checking out other women, even if she thinks that you're doing that when you're not doing it. But why would he when he's got a beautiful wife right here? So when you boost her self-confidence, she doesn't think otherwise.
Sure. Very nice way to look at it.
Yeah, look, it's just, so it's very important that we understand the cause and not deal with the symptoms. And as long as you do that, you can't go wrong.
Okay. Unfortunately, that's enough time we have on tonight's show.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for giving this two-part series, to giving the men and women out there the opportunities to speak up and ask questions. Thank you, Father Cyril.
No problem, Cyril. Look, it's been a blessing with you, and I hope I helped by the slightest bit to help people out there to communicate better and have a healthy Christian marriage, which is much more elevated than a non-Christian marriage. And by the grace of God, hopefully all churches will carry out seminars and discussions so that we can help our people and our church, because our background and the Middle Eastern background, we're very private, very enclosed. Some of these things are taboo, we shouldn't talk about it, but look, it's part of human nature. We all deal with it, we all come across it, all married couple, and therefore we can't just stick our head in the sand and not talk about it, because if we pretend that there's not a problem out there and we don't address it, then we become, rather than being proactive, we become reactive. And that's just not healthy. So we just need to, equip our church and our congregation with the best tools that we can to give them a healthy and a successful and a blessed marriage, especially given the divorce rate that we hear that floats around these days, and the difficulties that young people face these days in marriage and relationships.
Definitely. Pleasure having you on Ask.
Thank you so much, Mina. It's been a blessing. Thank you very much.
And thank you to our audience members who've tuned in to this two-part series, and hopefully you benefit something as a married couple. And we wish you a blessed Passion Week and a happy Easter. I'm Mina Ibrahim from your CYC studios in Sydney. Good night and God bless.
CYC, Christian Youth Channel.